Hi guys, I really dislike Michael Gove. I've said before how he can lie with such confidence that he brute forces his narrative into a way that it sounds like it's the truth. He appeared on the Trevor Philips show on Sunday where he was talking about home building. The Tories had set targets in the past but lowered them because they couldn't achieve them. What was then the course of action? To lower the targets. But even after that, they didn't manage to hit those either. It seems they have now changed tack by talking about high targets but simply lying about achieving them. Have a listen.
The government have a plan. We are seeking to deliver on that plan.
Why did you drop the target of 300,000 new homes every year when that's clearly the big problem?
We haven't dropped that target. It's a misunderstanding, a widespread one, that we have dropped our ambition, our goal, our target of getting 300,000 new homes.
Said in December 2022, this is no longer a, quote, top-down target.
No, I think you're, which a lot of people do, mixing up the 300,000 target with the approach that we take local authority by local authority.
This is the big problem with Michael Gove. So what happened in December 2022 was that they decided, let's get rid of this target because we're not meeting the target. And unfortunately, journalists are asking us about this target. So what we'll do is the Tories decided, let's get rid of the target. So then they can't keep asking us and embarrassing us. But when Michael Gove was asked about that, of course, here, he's like twisting and turning and saying, it has nothing to do with that. It's a different type of target you're thinking about.
Conservatives having consistently delivered more homes than were delivered under Labour, and particularly just last year, we were making...
What are you talking about, delivering more homes? The population has increased. Is it enough? It's not about whether you have delivered more homes or not. Because obviously the population under Labour was smaller. But there was an issue of housing, but the housing issue has become dramatically worse under the Conservatives over the last 14 years. So saying, well, we have built more homes, it's not enough. Are there enough homes? No, they're obviously not because of the situation. Because you wouldn't be talking about this. This wouldn't be such a hot topic issue for the voters if you were building enough homes.
Can I just stop you for a second?
This is critically important, Trevor. Yeah.
No, but what you said is very important. There is still a 300,000 new home target. Is there?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. 100%. We have a plan for new homes. Labour...
We have a plan. They keep coming back to this. We have been in power for 14 years, but don't worry. Vote for us again because we have a plan for the future. You're stuck in rented accommodation now. You have been over the last 14 years maybe. But don't worry. Sometime in the future, we have a plan to build more homes. And this will mean that you will be able to move out of rented accommodation and buy your own home. But it won't happen today because we have to implement our plan. We could have had a plan back in 2010, but we decided not to. But don't worry, this time we have a plan. The Labour Party don't have a plan, but we do. This is gaslighting the public. This is trying to convince the public that, ignore what happened over the last 14 years. Ignore the fact that we have abandoned you and believe, like in Brexit, believe that we have turned over a new leaf. That this time we will actually start building homes. We won't do it now because we have to win the election first.
Have no plan.
I know you want to keep taking me into campaign mode, but I'd rather like to deal with the government's actual actions for a moment. I just want to talk to you about the political cost
by Labour. The key thing is there's...
No,
oh my goodness. So what is he talking about here about stopped by Labour? Well, this is about environmental protections. So in the past, developers had to implement protections for the environment. And the government decided, well, our friends are developers. We want to make sure that they can profit even more from this situation. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the requirement for them to protect, for example, waterways through legislation. And Labour, of course, were against that. But remember, every time the Tories say, we're trying to implement something and we can't because of Labour, this is a pile of crap. Because remember, the Conservatives have a majority in the House of Commons. Now, when they fail to get something through, of course, they blame Labour. But it means that many Tories are voting against the government. So whenever there's a rebellion, of course, the Tory party will blame it on Labour. But Labour don't have a majority. Labour don't have the numbers to stop the government from doing something. The only people who can stop the government from doing something are individual Tory MPs.
I just want to talk to you about the political cost on the point that you raised this morning about home ownership amongst the young. Now, we're showing a graph here, which is that amongst 25 to 49-year-olds, you're polling at just above 10%. That is a quarter of the support you had when you came into government amongst that group. And that age cohort includes not just the young who can't buy a home without help from mum and dad, but it also includes their millennial parents. How are you going to feel when you look back 20 years from now?
Before we get to Michael Gove's response to this, just look at this graph. Support for those aged 25 to 49 has completely collapsed. And why? Because they have been abandoned, particularly on the issue of housing. The Tories have not built enough affordable and social housing. It means more and more people are stuck in rented accommodation. Now, in the past, the older generation would say, well, young people are stuck in rented accommodation because they're not saving enough, or because they're not working hard enough, or they're spending too much money on Netflix or on avocado toast or something. But now, even the older generation realise their grandchildren or their children can't get on the property ladder because houses are too expensive. Why are they too expensive? Because the supply is extremely limited. We're seeing this both in the UK and in Ireland in a dramatic way. More people are, in some cases, emigrating because they can't afford to live in cities like London or Dublin. So if you abandon a generation, they're not going to support you anymore.
And realise that you were the Housing Secretary that lost not just one, but two generations for the Tories.
Well, I hope if I have the chance to look back on what we've achieved in government, I'll be proud of what we've achieved. But on this...
What have you achieved? Apart from Brexit, which is the thing you normally roll out. What have you achieved? Have you built enough homes for people? No. Have you saved the NHS? Made it the gold standard once again? No. Schools are literally crumbling down because of RAC that you were told about and you ignored. So what is your record? What can you point to and say this has been an achievement? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Unless it's making money for very rich people.
Particular question. For me, the principal concern is not about parties. The principal concern is about people's faith in free markets and people's support for our political system overall. As a government, are we doing everything that we can in order to support?
14 years.
It's not about...
You've been in power for 14
yes,
years. And you haven't built the houses,
and
as I'm support.
Is it enough? Of course not. We need to do more. But for me, and this is the critical thing, this isn't about, the fate of any individual political party. Of course I'm a Conservative. I want the Conservatives to win the next election. But the reason why is because I want to make sure that people have a stake in our society. This isn't about one party versus another. It's about the future of our country.
The future of our country. You have decimated the country. The future of... You have abandoned the future generations. How can you talk about the future of the country when you have put in place measures to stop them from thriving? More and more young people now are spending more and more of their income on rent. That means that they're able to spend less money on other things. They're not able to get on the property ladder. You will talk about, we care about them, we're providing them with support. But obviously it's not working. You care more about your donors and you care more about the richest in society than society itself. You deserve never to be back into power. The Conservatives have done so much damage over the last 14 years. This is going to take decades to undo. People will be expecting Labour to achieve something in the first 100 days. They're not going to be able to undo the damage of the Tories in a parliament. It's going to take decades to undo because the levels of corruption, the crumbling of public services, schools, hospitals, and things like the judiciary, agriculture, all of these things have all collapsed under the Tories. And we're only going to start to see the real impact once they're out of power. And of course, remember, the Conservatives, as soon as they're out of power, will start talking about how, well, things were better when we were in charge, and how we need to, people need to vote them back into power because they care about growth, and they care about lower taxes, and these are the ways, and lower taxes, for example, are the ways to drive growth. And of course, Labour are not lowering taxes. That's why there isn't growth, and they're not implementing Brexit correctly and stuff like that. This is the sort of rhetoric you're going to hear, and they're going to attack Labour for not building enough homes. All of these things will take time to undo. And I'm sure the Conservatives and their friends in the media will be attacking whatever Labour do on a daily basis. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.